What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of me going live every day, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. In this video, I'm going to talk about my journey from bookkeeper to real estate investor. And I'm going to kind of go through 10 talking points. I'm going to talk about the hidden path to real estate. So it doesn't necessarily real estate investing doesn't have to be flipping houses or holding long-term rentals. I'm also going to talk about how I've leveraged my bookkeeping skills to underwrite real estate loans. I'm going to talk about why I chose private money lending over being a landlord or being a wholesaler or a flipper. I'm going to talk about protecting my loans with mortgages and first position liens. I'm going to talk about using other people's deals, other people's real estate knowledge to grow my real estate investing business, basically how I'm leveraging other people to find real estate loans, to find real estate investments. I'm going to talk about the power of compounding fixed income. So I don't just do real estate loans. I don't just earn the 12% annual interest, but I'm reinvesting all of that interest income. So my 12% ends up compounding on itself. And if you look at a compounding interest calculator over the course of 20 years at 12%, which we might do in this video, it's pretty powerful. It's pretty cool stuff. I'm going to talk about evaluating borrowers like a CPA, like an accountant. I'm streaming here on my YouTube, and I know a lot of people who watch my channel are also bookkeepers, accountants, CFOs. And so the idea is by me making these videos every day, I'll just be honest. I'll be transparent. I am trying to raise money in my investment fund, Zip Capital. But also at the same time, I love talking about this stuff. And so I am here to teach you what I know about private money lending, real estate investing, personal finance, and wealth management. And then I'm going to talk about risk mitigation. It's really the core of my business. It's the core of private money lending, risk mitigation. And then finally, I'll end the video by going over the fact that this is not just a side hustle. It might start out as a fun investment strategy, but for me, as a private money lender, I've got $1.7 million lent out at this point. So it's much more than just a side hustle. It certainly could start out as just a small investment strategy, maybe $10, maybe $20,000 invested in private money lending. But as you grow, you're going to want to make sure that you have systems and processes in place so that you could actually grow your private money lending. And then finally, why bookkeepers should possibly consider private money lending. That's kind of been the whole point of this series on my YouTube channel for the past 3 weeks. I've just been going through why it's such an amazing transition. Not just transition. It doesn't have to be a transition. You don't have to stop bookkeeping or being a staff accountant or a finance manager or a CFO. You don't have to stop doing that. It's really it's a great combination. Accountants, private money lenders, it really works well together. At least it did for me. So let's start from the beginning. So most people think in order to get into real estate investing, you need to flip houses or become a landlord, or more recently, you could maybe be a wholesaler. But to me, the hard part about that I found was finding a good deal. So about 2.5 years ago, I wanted to become a real estate investor. I wanted to buy a long-term rental. So I started looking at deals, started looking at the MLS, started looking at local properties for sale that might have fit my criteria. And I quickly became overwhelmed. I quickly realized that, wow, this is a big deal. This is hard. This requires a lot of work. And I wasn't going to shy away from hard work. I'm a big advocate of hard work, but the hard work didn't seem to fit my skill set. If I was a realtor or maybe even some other, maybe insurance, or maybe I was a title agent or maybe a real estate attorney, maybe I would have more experience analyzing deals, finding off market properties. Junk removal. If you have a junk removal company, you're actually positioned pretty well to find off market properties. But me as a bookkeeper, I just felt like I wasn't really leveraging my skill set. And so I was trying to find a long-term rental to buy, and it just was quickly overwhelming. And it just did not seem like a good fit with my skill set. So I basically figured out a different way to indirectly invest into real estate. And so through my bookkeeping business, through working with real estate investors doing their bookkeeping, I quickly learned about private money lending. Honestly, learned about it by accident. I was not going out of my way to try to find a new business to start, but I did have $50,000 through my bookkeeping business. Did have some extra cash laying around, did want to come up with an alternative investment strategy. And I was thinking about buying a long-term rental, decided it wasn't for me, did not want to spend the time, learn how to find a good deal. So instead, I leveraged my finance and accounting knowledge and experience and became a private money lender. All right, let's look at the questions real quick. If anybody on YouTube, if you've got questions or comments, I might be streaming on Instagram and Facebook. Not sure if I am or not, but definitely on YouTube. If you've got questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer everybody's questions and comments. So I'm making these videos for me, but also for you. I do love teaching. I do love sharing my knowledge. So, like Steele, I see you asked a question. Steele, a couple of the guys, you guys have been watching my videos every single day. Truthfully, I appreciate your support. I really do appreciate your support. So I make these videos as a way that I can share my knowledge, hopefully teach you guys something, but I'm also documenting my journey. So I update my board behind me every time I get a new investor. And right now we're at $358,000 invested into Zip Capital. And full transparency, my goal is to raise $5 million. I believe I can do that in 2025. And so I'm just doing this in the meantime. I'm trying to be patient. So I've figured out what to do in the meantime, and that is going live every day and just talking about private money lending, spreading awareness. Because 3 years ago, I did not know this was even a thing. I had no idea about private money lending for real estate investors 3 years ago. So now my goal is, yes, I want to raise money in Zip Capital. I'm offering 8% up to 12% fixed returns to accredited investors. But I also like talking about it, and I like teaching other people what I know. So if you have questions or comments, I'm making these videos for you so that hopefully I can teach you something about what I'm doing. So Steele, you said with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I feel like it is more difficult to track CRM. Do you have to alter how you track your leads with Sales Navigator? So right now I'm doing two things. I'm going through LinkedIn Sales Navigator and I am messaging everybody who I'm a first connection with. I'm messaging them. And if they respond to my message and if they express interest, then I add them to an Excel spreadsheet where I'm tracking all of my leads. And I would do the exact same thing if I was starting a bookkeeping business or any other business. I have an Excel spreadsheet where I track all of my leads, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, text message, church, football practice, networking event, wherever I meet an interested person, either an interested person in my bookkeeping services or an interested person in Zip Capital, I add them to my spreadsheet, just the date, their first name, last name, and the source. So where did I meet them? And then maybe some notes, maybe their email address, maybe, for example, follow up in August, or not an accredited investor, or wants to invest $100,000 in 2026, or follow up in December 2025. Just some notes so that I know what to look back on. So Steele, hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so number one, private money lending was kind of an unknown hidden path to real estate investing that I decided to take advantage of. So number two, leveraging my bookkeeping skills to underwrite loans. This has been a process that I've been fine tuning over the years. So my background in bookkeeping gave me a unique perspective. First, I've got a unique perspective behind the scenes of my current real estate investor clients, but also it gave me a unique perspective into interpreting and analyzing financial reports. So that's how I underwrite borrowers. I'm looking at tax returns and financial reports and bank statements, balance sheet, profit and loss, HUDs. Before I started doing bookkeeping for real estate investors, I had no idea what a HUD was, HUD. The HUD statement, whenever you purchase a property or sell a property. HUD, maybe Alta, closing disclosure, doesn't matter, but it's got all the information. It's got the purchase price, the loan amount, the closing costs, the loan charges, the taxes, utilities, any other fees at purchase or sale of a property. So my bookkeeping skills, experience, knowledge gave me a very unique perspective and enabled me basically to self teach myself how to underwrite loans. And also, I've just noticed how other loan officers, other banks underwrite loans. So I kind of have taken bits and pieces. Whenever I got a mortgage 2 years ago, I just took notice, how was my loan officer requesting documents and what documents was the underwriter looking for? Tax returns, bank statements, asking follow up questions, analyzing large transactions. So I've just been basically leveraging my bookkeeping and accounting and tax experience to be able to self teach myself how to underwrite. There is no perfect strategy. There's no perfect strategy for underwriting, but I think it doesn't necessarily matter what your criteria are. It mostly just matters that you have criteria and that you stick to your criteria. Those are two really important things. You could have the best underwriting criteria in the world, but once a deal comes across your table that you really want to do but doesn't necessarily fit your underwriting criteria, if you deviate from your underwriting requirements, then what's the point? So doesn't really matter what your criteria are. It's pretty standard across the board. Credit check, appraisal, tax returns, bank statements, liquidity, 3 to 5 flips in the past 2 years. There's a long list of criteria that you could choose. Doesn't matter what it is. Mostly just matters that you stick to it and that you have underwriting criteria. Okay, so number three, why I chose private money lending over being a landlord really came down to my interests, my skills, and my time. I feel like being a long term rental landlord is definitely a better financial play. I've done the math. And if you look at appreciation, depreciation, mortgage payments, rent increases, all of those things added together, purchasing a long term rental, in my opinion, is the better long term financial play. But when I look at my strengths, my interests, and my time, I feel like private money lending is a better use of my time, is better suited to my strengths and my interests. I don't want to deal with tenants, repairs and maintenance. And like I said in the beginning, I don't want to try to find a good deal. So instead, I let other real estate investors do all the work for me, find the good deal. Yes, I might be earning less of a return, but it's less work and it better suits my skills and my abilities. So that's why I chose private money lending over being a long term landlord. And then here's another hidden gem about being a private money lender. My my investments are relatively liquid. If I do a private money loan, my terms are typically 6 months. If I were to buy a long-term rental, it would not be a good idea for me to sell that long-term rental in 12 months. But instead, so the reason I bring that up is because if I find a good deal, then I want to maybe switch my investment strategy. Maybe in 2 years, interest rates plummet and it would finally make sense for me to buy a long term rental. So, as a private money lender, I can take advantage of potentially high interest rates right now. I can maybe spend some more time learning about the market. And who knows, maybe in 2 to 3 years, I find a 20 unit apartment building in Harrisburg that I do want to buy. Well, the good thing is I'll still have $1 million that I could deploy into purchasing that asset if I really wanted to. So as a private money lender, I feel like my cash is a little bit more liquid. It's not necessarily tied up super long term. My private money loans, my notes are all 6 months with an option to extend 3 months. So typically I'm getting my money back in 4 to 6 months. So I chose private money lending over being a landlord. It doesn't have to be a permanent decision. It could just be a temporary decision. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future. I'm a big fan of private money lending right now, so we'll see what happens. I'd like to keep doing it for the next 30 years, but I could switch. You never know. So the security behind real estate lending was really appealing to me. And it really all started with my real estate attorney, title agent, real estate attorney. These are the people on your team who will help you navigate the nuances of real estate. I am not an attorney. I'm not a title agent. I don't know much about property insurance, but instead, I've just leveraged other professionals and I've networked and connected with them and set up agreements where I've got a real estate attorney who drafts my promissory note, mortgage, and personal guarantee every time for $200. And I just simply pass that along to the borrower. So for $200, I get a mortgage and a promissory note. And so the mortgage is the security behind the promissory note. So these are not unsecured loans. So the reason that's important is if I lend a real estate investor $200,000, my loan is secured by a first lien mortgage on that property. That mortgage gets recorded at the county, and then it would be impossible nothing's impossible, nearly impossible for the borrower to sell that property without paying me back first. So that's the security. And if they default on the loan, which has never happened, but who knows, it could happen in the future. If the borrower defaults on the loan, then I can foreclose on the property. There's also something called deed in lieu of foreclosure, which is the step that I would take before a foreclosure. I would try to take over the deed instead of going through the foreclosure process. So that would be probably best case scenario because nobody wants to go through a foreclosure and pay legal fees. But if a borrower defaults because of the real estate attorney and what they've drafted in my promissory note and what the title agent and attorney recorded at the county with the mortgage, if they default on the loan, I have the right to foreclose on the property. So I don't get my money back immediately or directly, but instead I get the property back. And then I can sell the property to one of my many real estate investor connections in Pennsylvania. So that's why I have to have somewhat of a conservative underwriting approach because I don't want to exceed 70% of the after rehab value. And that covers potential hidden costs or attorney fees or market dips. So if the market dips 10 or 20%, I could still be protected. As long as I'm sticking to my 70% of ARV lending criteria, I could take the property back. I could hire a general contractor, fix up the property, hopefully sell the property, and at least break even, if not make a profit on foreclosing on that property. So everything's protected with a first position lien. Super, super important. If you're thinking about getting into being a private money lender, definitely recommend have a real estate attorney draft those documents for you. So I'm using other people's deals to grow my private money lending. So I already mentioned I don't need to find properties. I have a link on my website, a real estate loan request. Anybody who comes to me looking for a loan, boom, I immediately send them my online loan request. So if you're thinking about getting into private money lending, come up with a list of questions that you're going to ask anybody before you lend to them. You can look at my website, harrisburgbookkeeping.com. I've got a list, a real estate loan request form. Look at any other lender, any other mortgage broker or private money lender. They probably have a similar list on their website. Just come up with criteria that you ask new real estate investors whenever they want to get a loan from you. It's really simple. The property address, the ARV, the current purchase price, what kind of loan do you want? What's your experience? What's your credit score? Things like that. So I'm not actively finding properties. I'm just finding real estate investors, which has been a really great segue for me as a bookkeeper because I've been doing marketing and networking for the past 5 years to a bunch of real estate investors, trying to get them as bookkeeping clients. And so it's worked really, really well to seamlessly transition. Instead of offering bookkeeping services to those real estate investors, now instead I'm just offering lending services. I'm offering loans and funding for their acquisitions. And the really cool thing is I'm not taking on new bookkeeping clients right now necessarily, but if I ever decided to continue taking on more bookkeeping clients, I have a list of leads already. I have a list of local real estate investors who I could email or call or connect with and ask them if they ever needed bookkeeping services. So it's really a great combination. Bookkeeping, accounting, tax prep, CFO services combined with real estate private money lending has been a dream team for me. I really like doing it. Okay, so we're about halfway done. Let's just go back to YouTube real quick and see if anybody else asked any questions. I have been posting ads. Alec, you said I've been posting ads on real estate investor Facebook groups. Do you have other tips on attaining REI leads for bookkeeping? So it's the same tips that I always give for trying to get bookkeeping clients, really probably trying to get any clients. It's just a four-step process, and it's been really neat because I created this process 5 years ago and then kind of stopped doing it in 2024 because my bookkeeping business grew to the point where I wasn't really doing a ton of advertising and marketing. But it's been really cool because in 2026, it's in 2025, I have had to go back and look at my marketing strategy. I've had to do it all over again. It's been a huge challenge raising capital in Zip Capital, but it's also been really fun because I feel like I'm like starting all over again. I feel like I'm like getting to do it all over again, and it's kind of fun. So, getting clients, getting investors, getting customers for me, this is just my strategy. I'm not a marketing expert or a sales guru. This is just what worked for me. I've got 80 bookkeeping clients and I did it all organically, social media marketing, never paid for ads, but really it was just a very simple process. It was simple, but it was also really hard. So there's like simple and complex and there's easy and hard. It wasn't complex. It was pretty simple, but it also wasn't easy. It was really hard because you've got to do the same thing over and over again for a long period of time. So doing anything for a long period of time is hard. So simple, all I did was just create content every single day, sometimes multiple times a day on various social media platforms. And creating content can look like different things. You can create content on Facebook. It can just be text, picture, video, short form video, long form video, picture with words on it, picture with a caption, text. It could just be picture, just like a background with words on it. So, or it can be a blog on your website, or it can be a flyer that you send out in the mail. Doesn't matter what that looks like. You just got to create content every day. You're just basically saying, hey guys, look at me. I'm a bookkeeper. I'm a private money lender. I'm an investment fund manager. I'm raising capital. I've got $100,000 to lend, or I'm a QuickBooks Online expert. Let me know if you need help with your bookkeeping. That's really all it is. You're just sending out your message every day, building trust, building relationships, and spreading awareness. And then you got to find prospective clients. You got to find investors, borrowers, business owners, real estate investors. And for me, LinkedIn makes it super simple to search for people. Facebook groups were a great place. So I would just find local groups that were relevant to my business and then just sort through the members in those groups and then just friend request those members. And then engage with your community, engage with your social media network, engage with your followers, reply to comments, reply to people's posts, comment on people's posts. If anybody comments on your post, reply to it. Just engage, just build trust, build relationships. And then finally, send people a DM. Super simple, super straightforward. I'm doing it right now with Zip Capital. I'm just telling people, hey, I've got this investment fund, Zip Capital. I'm offering 8% to 12% fixed returns to accredited investors. If that sounds interesting, let's chat. And it's got like maybe a 2% success rate. If I send out 100 messages, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 5 people are interested, but it doesn't really take that long to send out messages. So that's been my marketing strategy. It worked for my bookkeeping business. It seems to be working for the capital. I've got almost $400,000 of other people's money raised. I've got 5 investors, and it all happened in 3 or 4 months. I'm brand new to Zip Capital and raising money. So the fact that I've got 5 investors, I think that's a pretty good track record. But yeah, that was probably way more of an answer that you wanted, but that's my strategy for getting bookkeeping clients and getting investors into Zip Capital. Let's see what else. You could look at the numbers and say long-term rentals are the better investment. But if the time, effort, and interests are important to you, then the numbers might be contradictory to that. Exactly, Steele. That's exactly right. Let me close my door real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. It's one of the things about having a home office when the kiddos get home from the park. It can be a little bit distracting. Okay, where were we? We're almost done. So I typically go live every day, 11 a.m. until 11:30. So let me try to answer all these questions real quick. When someone gets cash back from a credit card, do you categorize that as income? Yes, I categorize that as other income. And typically that gets categorized as credit card rewards, other income. Has there been a clear way to differentiate non-accredited investors and accredited investors when you do marketing and sales? No, That is actually a great point, and that has been one of the more frustrating things. This week alone, I've got 2 people who said they want to invest into Zip Capital. They have $100,000 but they aren't accredited. So I lost them. And that's frustrating, but I feel like we have to stay focused. Same thing happened with Zip Capital. Same thing would happen if I had a fencing company and somebody called me up and said, "Hey, can you build me a deck? Or can you build me a shed?" And I have a fencing company. I probably could build you a deck. I probably could build you a shed. Same thing with QuickBooks Online, bookkeeping. I only do bookkeeping for business owners with QuickBooks Online, and I only do bookkeeping. I don't do taxes or payroll. Same thing with investing. I only take on accredited investors. Same thing with lending. I only lend in Pennsylvania. There's a million different examples. And it's really frustrating when you're just getting started and you have a niche or an avatar. It's really frustrating when you miss out on an opportunity. But I feel like we just have to stay focused. We can't get distracted by all the different opportunities. There are quite literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of good ideas out there. They're all over the place. Good ideas. There's no shortage of good ideas. You could probably make any business be successful. But once you come up with a niche or an avatar or a criteria, we have to stick to it. We have to stay focused. So yes, it's been frustrating. There is no real good way other than people can self-verify. I could simply ask you, are you an accredited investor? And you could tell me yes or no. That would be really the only way to weed that out in the beginning. Let's see. A couple more questions. Can you give tips on how to get bookkeeping clients? I'm a Filipino remote bookkeeper. Maggie, I think I already answered your question. Hopefully that helps. Do you invest in REITs? No, I don't invest in REITs. So I will explain my personal wealth management strategy real quick. I have an IRA that is mutual funds that track the S&P 500. I have a solo 401k that has mutual funds that track the S&P 500, and I have private money loans. That's it. And I own my own house. I've got mutual funds that track the S&P 500. I have a 20-year term $1 million life insurance policy, and I do local real estate private money loans. That is it. That is my long-term wealth management strategy. It's not perfect. I'm sure there are a bunch of people who would give me suggestions and recommendations on how I can make that better. I'm sure there are ways that I can make it better, but I like it. It's simple. It makes sense to me. It's worked well for me. I'm probably going to keep rocking that until I find something new. Thank you. Really appreciate it. How do you get accredited? Great question. You can become an accredited investor by either getting your Series 66, 65, Series 7. You can pass those exams and be like for like the financial advisor thing. You can pass those tests, or you can, I think becoming a CPA makes you an accredited investor. Maybe, might be wrong on that. The most common way is either have $200,000 of annual income or a $1 million net worth. So those are the requirements. That's not my requirement. That is an SEC compliance requirement that I have to have a Regulation D 506C investment fund. Okay, we've got like 1 minute left. Let's see. What else is there? Risk mitigation is my business model. Yes, I would. So sure, you can get 30, 40, 50% returns if you're maybe day trading or maybe investing in cryptocurrency. And that's great. Some people love that. That's awesome. But I'd rather consistently earn 10, 12, 15% than occasionally risky and get 30, 40% doing risky investments. So I'm more of a conservative. Investing in real estate is probably not going to get you 30, 40, 50% unless you're actively flipping. If you're actively flipping, yes, you can get great returns, but that's a full-time job. So if you're more passively investing long-term, I'm really happy with 10 to 15% returns. Yeah, so this is a business, not a side hustle. It can be a side hustle investment if you only have 10, 20, 50, $100,000. You can do one loan every 6 months, and you could quite literally turn $100,000 into $112,000 in 1 year. You can get a 12% return potentially if you structure your real estate loans correctly. And I would encourage you, Look up an investment calculator and look at $100,000 compounding 12% annual interest over 20 years and look to see how much that would grow. I did that and I got really excited. And when I saw that, I just went all in on private money lending. So if you even if you just have $10,000, maybe consider doing a real estate private money loan. Great way to earn pretty consistent returns. And then finally, bookkeepers. I think I already talked about this. Bookkeepers, accountants, CFOs, just a great transition, a great complement, a great addition to private money lending. The businesses work really well together. We're already networking with real estate investors. We already understand the finances and the accounting. So if you are a bookkeeper or an accountant or a CFO or a tax accountant or a CPA, and you want to learn more about real estate private money lending, I'm going to be going live every day on my YouTube channel at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that, I will say I'm taking a break next week. But I will be going live again July 21st. So taking a break next week, and I will see you all July 21st. Okay, there's one more question. Do real estate investors have to file monthly sales tax with their state when they flip a house? No, I don't think so. I could be wrong, but no, not in Pennsylvania. Talk to a life insurance agent about a whole life policy to overfund, and then you can live off the funds tax-free. I have looked into whole life insurance. Not a fan of it. I just don't understand it. Maybe I will in the future. Johnny, you're the man. Enjoy your break. Thanks for everything. Johnny, Steele, Alec, Maggie, Jeffrey, I really appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for your support. I'm making these videos for you. This has been kind of fun. This is going to be a fun journey. I can't wait to see what's going to happen the rest of 2025. I hope I keep doing this. If you guys keep showing up, I'll keep showing up. So how about that? That's our agreement. You keep watching, I'll keep making these, and I'll keep sharing my journey. Who knows? Maybe I'll get to 5 million faster than I think. Thank you all